As the 21st century continues, new questions have begun to occupy the public consciousness. One of these questions is that of the future of robots. More specifically, as robots become more and more advanced, there is rising concern that robots will replace the majority of jobs over the next few years. Today, we will be exploring the question, will we be better or worse off after the rise of robots? We will be exploring arguments for why life will be worse, why it could be better, and finally, what we can do to ensure that this is a positive change for as many people as possible. Let's start with some reasons why the future could be worse with the rise of robots. The first and most obvious answer that tends to be stated is the very likely possibility that the rise of smarter robots will lead to mass unemployment. This argument is far more than just a guess. If we look back to the rise of mechanization during the industrial age, we would expect to see a spike in unemployment as low-skilled workers are forced out of their jobs, which are now replaced with early robots. However, we instead find that these low-skill workers move into newly created factory jobs. The fear with the rise of these new robots is we would once again see mass unemployment as low-skill workers are forced out of their low-skill manufacturing jobs. However, there would be no movement of workers into newly created jobs, either due to a skill gap or because these new jobs just do not exist. This entire concept is best summed up by Lindahl in her paper on robots, jobs, and taxes when she says, "Any job in which people serve as menial interfaces, e.g. adjusting the dose of a medication for a patient, is now at risk." This first argument seems largely valid. However, there are more issues which are a bit harder to prove or disprove. One of the most abstract of these issues is the next logical step past the previous issue, that the rise of machines will change the world in ways which we can't reasonably predict. Bruno S. Free, in a book on economic misconceptions, said, "There will be turmoil. Some economic adjustment will be necessary, and some workers will become unemployed due to technological change. As this is just the easily predictable part of the equation, who can predict what else might change?" However, Bruno Frey continued on to say, we should not underestimate the human capacity to react to these changes and shouldn't close our eyes to this aspect of the ongoing digital revolution. It is easy to say this concept scares us, so we should not even try. But since the world is continuing regardless of our individual opinion, we should do our best to meet it head-on. These are the two most popular fears when we look at potential concerns for the rise of robots. One, that there will be huge displacement of low-skilled workers, and then a general fear of the unknown. Now, let's look at some potential benefits that could come with the rise of robots. First, as Mark Hosk says in his article on robots versus jobs, robots are motion-controlled automation. Automation and robots create and save manufacturing, high-technology jobs, and other supporting jobs. When automation is applied correctly, employees feel more valued and secure. This hints at something we touched on in class, that machines are not only a substitute for human labor, but that machines can also operate as complements to new jobs and opportunities. There is more evidence of this than of the contrary, as we saw during the Industrial Revolution, people working with machines in new, innovative ways. Another potential benefit could be cheaper goods. The only reason an owner would look at replacing workers with machinery or advanced robots would be to make a product more price competitive. While it is not ideal for employees, price competitiveness results in a win for all consumers. Obviously, there are reasonable hypothetical benefits and fears for both sides of the issue. So now, I would like to see what we can do to try and assure the positive benefits and potentially mitigate the negatives. The first way we could potentially address the issue of robots is with political policy. If we intend to plan for the worst-case scenario, the most appropriate response would be an equally drastic policy change. And the most direct answer in this situation would be a universal basic income. Philip Paris explains the concept in his article in Politics and Society when he says, if the universal scheme replaces, in part or entirely, a means-tested one can expect the labor supply of people at the bottom of the earning scale to increase because of the so-called poverty trap being reduced or even abolished. This solution could alleviate much of the fear around new robots, but the actual long-term effects are unknown. There is another solution for this issue, one which is probably far more likely. We could do nothing. I know, this sounds counterintuitive, so let me explain. As we have already explored, none of these outcomes are guaranteed, and I think we would have a tough time deciding which of the outcomes is more likely. This is best summed up by Eugenio Guglielmelli, a biological engineer discussing the application of robots to the workforce. He says, I believe this is important from an industrial economics perspective, but a practical answer will come too late to support the development of new markets, meaning any solution we try and develop now can easily be the wrong solution in the future. We then have to ask, how can we possibly plan with no real way of knowing what we are planning for? We now return to the initial question, and we must unfortunately say we have no way of knowing whether robots will make the world a better or worse place. We can, however, say the most likely response is one that falls in the middle, a situation where robots change the world, but probably don't destroy it. Thank you.